I think patient involvement is really vital for anything to do with research or patient care, because you get the staff, you might get the academics that are really good on technical things, the staff and the strategic stuff, but actually to get the real impact on what it has on a patient, you need to get the publics, because they give an unbiased, they'll tell you how it is. And not always what you want to hear, but I think it's valuable in the development of things. And it's vital if it concerns patients. It's got to be, relevant really. And I like on risk scores because, it's a matter of life and death, wasn't it? It wasn't just, do you fancy blue or green colour in a room? It was actually vital. So for patients to really support the staff and when they tell them things about their relatives, I think patients have got to have involvement, that it comes out in a language that they understand, because I think you lose patients and public when you start with all these long words, strategic stuff and medical terms. It goes over your head and you think, I can't contribute to this. So I think communication in any line is really vital. If you want a patient to comply with what you want them to do, tone of voice can turn you really off. I've got an incident now when this particular nurse rings me about something. She is so cold and businesslike, I don't feel I can warm to her, and I can't explain what I want to, yet somebody else will ring me, and a more gentle nature, a more chatty nature, her communication skills are really good. So I think this applies to this risk score. If you're telling a relative about the results that you've got, doing it in a way that shows that you're interested in the person, not just the computer and the scores, I think it's really vital. We hope that it did help the researchers because we didn't have any bias one way or another, and we had nothing to gain or lose, so we could ask the awkward questions, as you might say, where a staff member couldn't challenge a researcher or another team member, we could. So I think it's vital that you get another element to research, and that's through public involvement. We had conference calls, so they might be in the different areas like York and that, we'd all get around a table. They're not so easy for public involvement because you can't see the people, can you, when they're speaking, but it's a good tool to have involvement. And then we had workshops, so we had particular questions to answer and we're around a group and you sort of vibe off each other, don't you? Some people say something and then you think, oh yeah, and that triggers off a thought. So I think that these workshop things are really good. You get more out of it, I think, that something like that. Well, obviously that we want them to be developed into many more sites, don't we? So that really helps patients and their span. But I think that we'd like, as public involvement, we'd like to be taken still on the journey and perhaps talk to the staff and see, what problems they had, because if it's problems about communication with relatives, perhaps we could help them. So I still think that there's an element that we can carry on the journey until it's across the board. So I'd like to see that happen. And I think that way as well, that staff and academics, they'd build up a trust in the public involvement, because sometimes I think that we get put in this public involvement and sometimes they're a bit dubious about why we're there. Are we there for our own gains? Which often we're not, because it's nothing to do with research for our health, is it? So I think you need that trust and respect for each other, that what you say, you might challenge, but it's a friendly challenge. It's not to be of the awkward squad.